to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Robbins.
Here.
Commissioner Rushton.
Present.
Commissioner Bailey. Here. Chairman Wessel.
Here.
Commissioner Sorslow is delayed.
Hopefully on our way.
Commissioner Algar. Here. Commissioner Robner. Present.
Thank you. Thank you. We now have some minutes to approve. Anybody have a motion for us?
I would move the Board of Commissioners approve executive session Tuesday, September 13th, 2022 minutes and regular session Wednesday, September 21st, 2022 minutes.
Support.
Any discussion? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved 6-0.
Wait on executive. Is that what we-
Okay, we'll wait on the executive session October 4th.
Yeah, I'd like to read those.
We now have an agenda and we have a late edition on information technology, a late edition 2. We'll add that to under action items E, 7E. Any other deletions or additions? Commissioner Rushton?
Yes, I would like to bring up the issue of our next executive board meeting, which falls on election day. And I would like the board to have a conversation in regards to changing that date so that the commissioners that are running for their seats have an opportunity to attend to their elections. And the burden on the clerk for that day is a little bit more than I think we should ask of our clerk. So I would like to add us having a conversation in regards to moving that day.
Let's put that under 7F. Any other additions, deletions? Did I miss it? Did I miss a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
All those in support of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved 6-0. Thank you. At this time, we have an opportunity for public comment. We would ask you to come up to the table and identify yourself, and if you're comfortable saying where you reside, and speak to the Board of Commissioners, not the audience, please. Yes.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Zachary Hilliard with Housing North, 818 Red Drive, Suite 10, Traverse City, Michigan, 49684. I wanted to briefly introduce myself tonight. I'm the new Housing Ready Program Director for Leelanau County. So I started with Housing North on September 19th. I'm very excited. I've met some of you already. Had the opportunity to attend the Housing Action Committee yesterday, and I thank you for the warm welcome. I've been doing a deep dive in some of the potential solutions that we can bring through communities throughout Leelanau County to help meet the housing needs, the unique housing needs that each community has. And I'm just really excited to get to work, and I want to be a resource throughout the community to you, and I really look forward to working with everyone, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
We've been waiting for you to join us, so thank you very much. And did you bring cards? You have business cards?
Yes, I have.
Would you leave a few up here and we'll make sure that we get one?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And what was your name again?
Zach Hillier.
Zach Hilliard. Thank you. Thank you. Great.
Any other public comment? Mr. McCutcheon? Oh, Mr. Knapp?
Go ahead. Okay, you asked for it. Charles Knapp, Cleveland Township. Last time I managed to make it to a commission meeting was probably 2 meetings ago, maybe 3, for various reasons I couldn't help. Michelle, bless her heart, sat up here for an hour and told us our elections were secure. Okay, that's fine and good. People have to trust their elections, no matter what people say about them. And as long as strange things happen in Leelanau County in the 2020 election, for example, 2,000 more people voted than voted in 2016. Maybe there was just higher turnout, who knows? But the Biden got 8,795 votes. His margin of victory was 879. I get these numbers from a website called Dave Light's Atlas of Presidential Elections.com, which is a really neat website. I'll put in a plug for it right now. You can find out what happened in the election of 1836 if you want. And it's really fun to look through. But anyway, this didn't carry down line. Even Biden got 2,021 more votes than Hillary did in 2016. That's kind of strange. Anyway, when all of this is said and done, I think we shouldn't have anything to do with Dominion voting machines. People just will always have doubts about them. I think we should use a punch card stylus system like we used in Nevada. I think I've mentioned that before, where it's all mechanical. And when you're done with your ballot, you turn it in, drop it in the box, the county clerk counts it, but it's all mechanical. And if you mess your ballot up, you give it to the poll worker, they give you another one. So that's what I really think ought to be done here. Because otherwise, like I say, none of this carried down line. Biden's victory here did not carry down line. John James won, all the Republicans who were supposed to win won. So I would not, like I say, I think we should go to a stylus punch card type voting system. And you have to trust the votes. You have to trust the election, or the elections don't mean anything. And then you've got places like any number of third, fourth, and fifth world countries where you basically give one man, one vote once. And so anyway, that's what I have to say about that you have to trust it. And changing the whole voting system, the method of it, I think would to create that. The other thing, and I just stumbled across this today. Apparently, yesterday was Indigenous Peoples Day, at least in Leelanau County, because the Strong Heart Center was closed. And I somehow thought tacking that on top of Columbus Day was sort of insulting to both sides, because have the Indigenous Peoples Day a separate day if you're going to do it, instead of trying to snuff out Columbus. After all, if Columbus hadn't sailed the ocean blue, we'd all still be serfs on some European noble's estate. There's two sides to every story, and that's my side, and I'm sticking to it. So that covers what I wanted to say. The biggest thing, though, is I think we should go to a stylus and punch card type of voting system.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Pankowski.
Good evening. I'm here to continue on the issue of the need and necessity, but another reason why the commissioners need to apologize to the county clerk and the people for their actions or non-actions. We heard last meeting a month ago of a feeble attempt by the board to undo the damage of deciding on an earlier date, one-time salary increases for employees. Then on a knee-jerk attempt to help out taxpayers by nominally reducing taxes, knowing all along it cannot be done. We wanted to do something for the taxpayer. I guess it's the way to buy loyalty to commissioners or whatever works for you people to be reelected, and regardless of performance. The admission that due diligence did not take place in researching this matter is astounding. It was stated and not one commissioner said, no, that's not true. So that's another reason that we need to apologize, because it's hardly a proper exercise of commissioners' required fiduciary duty. Commissioners expect residents, taxpayers to honestly believe that their panic, knee-jerk, no due diligence efforts to establish a new finance department with 3 new employees with almost no county finance experience, costing $300,000 per year, will perform finance responsibilities and duties in a superior performance than the county clerk did. For most people, this was not a surprise because it appears that a new modus operandi is in place for the county commission going forward. It also seems odd that the administrator is going along for the ride. Will this new modus operandi be required to be part of the contract with the new administrator, so that modus operandi will be permanently etched or implemented in all the board's future decisions, actions as part of the board rules? A quote by Anthony Ashley Cooper, 3rd Earl of Shaftesbury. All politeness is owing to liberty. We polish one another and rub off our corners and rough sides by a sort of amicable collision. To restrain this is inevitably to bring a rust upon men's understanding. 'Tis a destroying of civility, good breeding, and even charity.
Thank you. Yes.
Hello, my name is Alexis Whitman from Northport, Michigan. And I couldn't make the last meeting, so I sent you an email. And it details some interesting information worth knowing about. The state of Florida, by some reputedly a very well-run state, created an agency for election security within its Department of State. They realized that law enforcement officials do not have the training, nor the time, nor the manpower to investigate issues of fraud and irregularities that may arise. So that was news 6 months ago, and I hadn't come across it until I sent you that email, and I thought you should know about that, because my plea is for at least an ad hoc committee to review election integrity. 6 days ago, you should know that there was an arrest made in Los Angeles of a Michigan CEO of the Conic Company, a gentleman named Eugene Yu, who is accused, and he's innocent until proven guilty, but his company is accused of storing on databases in China the personal information of election workers. He has dealings with, I believe, 32 North American companies. If you go to his website, which I encourage you to do, conic.com, you'll see that absentee voting is one of the things that bannered on his company's webpage. He provides infrastructure for elections. So who knows what that means, but you should be aware of that. And, you know, conspiracy theory gets thrown around as it did at the cherry pie debate, and many times by one of the candidates. And on October 3rd, the New York Times was calling this gentleman's activities a conspiracy theory. But then on October 4th, they had to relate the fact that he had in fact been charged and arrested on these same claims. The claim that this was the best election ever in 2020 is an opinion, and I prefer to deal in facts. I will quote from this great new book I picked up, The 2020 Coup by Patrick Colbeck. I met the man along with Sean Hernandez, our Republican VP candidate, at a Constitutional Party celebration. And I knew this, but I want to remind us all that 3 months before the November 3rd election in 2020, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, responsible for understanding, managing, and reducing the risk to our infrastructure, released what they referred to as a critical infrastructure security and resilience note, which included a list of election components vulnerable to cyber and non-cyber attacks. These included the voter registration database, the poll books, ballot preparation, voting machines, tabulation systems, official websites, storage facilities. I have yet to have any indication that in those 3 months before the election, there were any activities to secure in a greater degree those elements. And until that's proven, we have to believe that they were suspect. Also in the cherry pie debate, it was decided or said that the Supreme Court had turned down any judgment on the election itself. And they did turn down a decision based on standing, that the state of Texas did not have the standing to sue another state to correct an election result. But they did not hear it on the merits. In fact, when Mr. Trump, when the case has been heard on the merits themselves, there have been 21 cases, and Mr. Trump has been victorious in 14 of those. So that's 2/3 of the cases based on the merits that they've brought forward that has been shown to be siding with the alleged allegations that Trump has made. I would encourage people to go to election-integrity.info and also letsfixstuff.org for more information. You also probably did hear about the LA school system, right? They were attacked with a huge ransomware flaw. And they probably thought their VPN was secure also. This county has been the victim of a ransomware attack of its own. So I guess I'll leave you with that. There's always more to say, but I'll email you some things. And I appreciate your listening. I think it's not just the duty of the clerk to care about our elections. It's the duty of each one of you. And I know you take that seriously. And it's the duty of each one of us to have an interest in this. I asked myself if I would be just as virulent and interested if the flaws that I see had been perpetrated towards the Democrats, and I hope I would be. I can just state that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Thank you very much. Oh, yes, sir.
Hi, my name is David Kiesel, and I talked to you a couple weeks ago about the year, December 15th. I had a heart attack. Actually, it was a heart attack and heart block. Now I'm run by a little pocket watch computer in my chest. I told you how everything happened. Since then, I've had another thing. They sent me a monitor, which I've got in my bedroom, sitting on a stand, and it monitors everything that happens to this little thing in my chest. No wires hooked to it. When I walk in that room, it downloads everything that happens to me. And I can't explain how it works, but I know it does. It sends everything to Munson Hospital. So my doctor has a record of everything that happens in my chest. I've also got a thing you put on your finger, monitors your heart rate. And it sits there, they program this monitor between 60 and 120. And I can sit there on my finger, and all I have to do is raise my hand like this. It'll go up from 62 to 64, whatever my body needs, it automatically does that. It's programmed to do that. So I really don't understand these machines. They're telling me that they're fail-safe, you know, they're all correct. I do not believe that, because I've also, over-the-road truck driver, I told you that. I've had computers in my truck since the early 2000s. When I first got my last new Kenworth, it was programmed to run 111 miles an hour in high gear. It would go from 55 miles an hour to 111 in one gear. The computer did all that, okay? Well, I took it right back in, had to reset it, kick out at 85, because you need that kind of power when you get out west, okay? But again, that's a program. And I've told you this truck story because I was going to Detroit one morning, and I was running along about 65 miles an hour in traffic, heavy traffic. And all of a sudden across my screen says, program defective. Your truck's gonna shut off in 2 minutes. You have to find a place to park. I have no faith in computers like that. It's left me sit down. I have a faith in this thing that's in my chest. It works. Other than that, I do not have faith in the computers as far as it can't be programmed by people. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Mr. Kiesel. Any other public comment? Thank you. Any commissioner comment? Yes, Commissioner Robbins?
Thank you. I know we tried on October 5th to go out to Maple City to the Habitat project for work day. Didn't work, but it's been scheduled for next Thursday, October 20th, from 9 until 1, and we're going to need a head count by Tuesday. And anyone's invited. The more we can get out there, the better.
So let Rick know if you can make it, and invite your friends and let Rick know if they can make it. Thank you.
This is Maple City, right?
Any other commissioner comment? Thank you very much. We're now at a spot in our agenda where we have presentations, and we're going to start out with Kelly on our beta. Thank you, Kelly, for being here.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to come and provide some education on our upcoming ballot request. But before I begin, I just want to recognize the efforts of our Leelanau County Commission members that serve on the beta board, Ms. Gwen Elgire. And I would be remiss if I didn't also mention the other commissioners that have gotten us to this point. So Commissioner Robbins and Commissioner Rushton and Commissioner Lautner a few years back, but nonetheless have been on this journey during the time that I have been with Beta. So it's been a pleasure to work with all of them, and we really appreciate the leadership that they've provided, as well as your Leelanau County appointed board member, John Somavilla. He's here with me this evening as well. And then as a bonus Leelanau County representative, we have Heather Harris Brady, who serves in our our at-large board member position. She's also a resident of Leelanau County. So you have been well represented. Next slide. That's how this goes. Okay. Thanks for putting up with me. Usually this is Eric. We divide and conquer. This time of year, there are many different presentations happening simultaneously. So I will do my best to say next slide when I'm ready. But wanted to just kind of start by reviewing some of the overview of Beta services. We of course provide many forms of public transportation to all of Grand Traverse and Leelanau counties. That's 900 square miles service area. And we provide about 1,000 rides a day right now. Since 2017, which was the last time we were on the ballot, we have provided over 2 million rides. In this past year, we've seen 124% increase on our Link on Demand service. Currently, that serves in the Traverse City, relatively the Traverse City limits, more or less. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that service later in this presentation as we see that coming to Leelanau County in the next year also, and we're really excited about that. Additionally, I think it's important to note that more than 170,000 rides in this past year were provided to seniors or riders with disabilities. Yes.
We have in the past asked for actual number of riders, say to your 1,000 rides a day is,
Unique individuals as
Yes.
riders. Yeah, we don't, there's just no way to
100
track.
riders a day, maybe, not that many.
I mean,
You have somebody. you have a
there's
rider,
really no way for us to know how many individual people that would be.
Yeah, they catch a bus, that's 2 rides. They reverse, so it could be 4 rides a day.
I mean, we just don't have that data. So, I mean, I would be guessing. Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you.
Mhm. Did you have a question too? Okay.
Well, yeah, one question.
Mhm.
Gotta re-educate me a little bit. Link on demand, is that rolled out here?
That is not out here yet. So that is how our City Link service in Traverse City
So
works.
these figures here don't really pertain to our county.
So we were here in March and provided a presentation that was specific to Leelanau County. This is a presentation that is specific to Beta as a whole. It is not, it is not broken into specifics for Leelanau County. Next slide. So just a few highlights of what we've been working on. Our existing propane fleet is actually at about 52% now, and growing as fast as we can get buses in the door, which has not been very fast these last couple of years because no one's making them anymore. But we are on a plan to reach 90% propane and electric vehicles by 2025. So we are phasing out our gasoline and our diesel buses. We are going to be continuing to right size our fleet and using smaller vehicles out here in the county in particular. We do have more than 80 vehicles in our total fleet. Next slide. This is just an overview of the various services that we provide. The Bay Line is a crosstown route that is fare free. It's our high frequency route that services east-west across Traverse City. It is used by a lot of people that come in from Leelanau County and don't want to drive in Traverse City. They can park at Meyer on the west side and get on the bus and get downtown or all the way over to Woodland Creek Furniture area, Mount Holiday Road. And anywhere in between. The City Loop and the Village Loop are our fixed route services. And then we have, of course, our Village Link has on demand in the city and demand response. And the difference in that is with demand response, you just call ahead up to a week ahead of time to schedule your ride. And then, of course, our bike and ride service that has been really popular on Loop 10 that comes up through Sutton's Bay in particular. Next slide. So on the ballot, November 8th, we have a millage proposal request. And this request is a continuation of our existing rate. When we were asking the voters in 2017 for our millage rate at that time, it was a request for 0.5. And with Headley rollback, we're down to 0.4788. And our request this time around is just a continuation of that rate. Next slide. Some milestones since the last millage request. Again, so I mentioned about the link on demand. And what's exciting about that service and what will be exciting for Leelanau County in the next year or so is that it operates in an Uber-like fashion. So it has an app that tracks the bus. You can see exactly what your wait time is. It updates in real time. And you can request the ride the day before, but it works just as well to request it in real time when you need it. And we deliver that ride in 30 minutes or less in the city area. I would imagine out in the county, don't quote me on this, but I'm just gonna say it's probably gonna be like an hour or less because of the geography that we're covering, but also continuing to expand the green fleet. We do have some electric vehicles that have been funded, and we're just waiting to get those on order from a state contract. So exciting to have those entering the fleet. And then additionally, we've also added Wi-Fi on all of the buses and improved the bus stops to encourage more of a placemaking around the bus stops and inviting for people to wait in a safe environment. So 54 of our bus stops to date have shelters and more comfortable waiting areas.
So if I could ask,
Mhm.
in the new build, are you gonna have your charging stations in your new build?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you anticipate that you'll have those buses before you're in the new building?
it's a beat the clock situation. We're not sure. It is kind of a race of which one is going to happen first, the electric vehicles or the new
So what happens with
facility.
the vehicles? Where are you gonna charge at? And how are you gonna manage that?
Yeah, so it will probably be, it just depends on what the timing is for their arrival. I mean, if they're gonna be here in a year, it may be worth the putting in the infrastructure to either at our Hall Street station or at our existing facility. If it's more than a year before they come on site, it's probably gonna be a matter of waiting until we get the facility. You know, it's just gonna be sort of a juggle of which one comes first and how close it is. Okay, next slide. Some additional milestones since the last millage request. So prior to 2017, we went out and we did a full community assessment asking the residents of Grand Traverse and Leelanau counties what they would like to see from the public transportation system. And many of them requested more service, the Wi-Fi on the buses, the shelters. Many of the things that we have accomplished were a direct result of the feedback that we had gotten in that survey. So I feel like we've done a really nice job of delivering on those promises. And the first item of business on that was launching the Bay Line as a high frequency route. The more frequent a route is, the more likely it is for people to utilize it. It just makes, it removes a lot of barriers. And through the beta board support, we were also able to launch that service as a fare-free service and did a unique community funded model to replace the fare box on that. And it was very, very successful. In fact, in 2019, we had system-wide, we had reached record levels of ridership with 591,000 rides. And that was like a 30% increase year over year from the prior year. So really had a great trajectory of ridership growing. Unfortunately, the pandemic hit and we certainly have been impacted by that in a number of ways like everyone else. But we are climbing now and seeing those ridership demands going up and are trying our best to get the staff back to full force so that we can deliver those services at those levels again and see those same ridership numbers. So in the meantime, we have also been pursuing building of a new headquarters facility, a new operations center. And along with that, we were seeking the funding to do that. And we were successful with that funding request in 2020 with $17 million from the FTA and MDOT to fund the basis of that project. Of course, with escalation from the pandemic, inflation and all of that, it's gone up quite a bit, but we've been really fortunate to continue to be awarded additional federal and state guarantees of funding so that we feel secure going forward with building that facility. So I think Gwen has a letter with her tonight, even that I shared with the Beta board members earlier this week that we had just received from MDOT guaranteeing us that gap funding. We were about $6 million short on the total budget, and they've provided a letter in writing saying that they will fund that if we're not able to get additional grants in the meantime. So that's a great peace of mind for all of us as we are going to be breaking ground in the spring, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Also, just in the planning for the future with where do we go as we come out of this pandemic era? And so we've been doing a full assessment, a transit master plan, which we've called Beta Next Wave, and that will map out our services, including how we provide service to Leelanau County and what a link on demand service can look like out in this county. Next slide. So what do we plan to provide if the millage is approved? Unlike when we were asking for an increase in 2017, this is a continuation of our current rate. So with that will be a continuation of our services. We will continue to adapt to changing needs in the community, but this is an operating millage, and it doesn't have a lot of the same, added services that the increased millage had in 2017. We will continue to do what we've been doing. We will continue to deliver on the results of the transit master plan, and we will be in a new facility that provides sustainability for the transit system and the ability to grow and continue to serve the region for decades to come. The way that, next slide. The way that public transit is funded is the local millage really forms the basis of the funding. The other funding sources are a percentage of a dollar spent. So you have to have a local millage in place to provide the foundation. Otherwise, you only have 60 cents of every dollar that you spend in your revenue. This is just how that all comes together as an example. Next slide. Just our website there where you can get more information about our millage, beta.net/millage. Next slide. And then just a little bit about our housing and transit project. So I mentioned our new facility. It's very exciting for the region because we have partnered with the Traverse City Housing Commission to build it adjacent to workforce housing. And this is going to be located on the corner of Lafreniere and Hammond Roads in Grand Traverse County, and is on a 50-acre parcel where more than half of that is going to be maintained as green space. Much of that is wetlands, and so there's, let's see if we have a little bit of a, next slide. A little bit of an overview of the area there. So you can see the operations center for Beta that will be replacing our headquarters on Cass and South Airport is located down on the corner of Hammond and Lafreniere there. And then a little bit further north, we have the housing complex that will be 200 affordable apartments and about 15 Habitat for Humanity homes. And then there's also a daycare facility and a commercial building. And then the little seesaw thing there is our transfer station that will be servicing the corridor there and providing really easy access for all of the residents there and along that corridor, and as well as anyone traveling from Grand Traverse, the southeast parts of Grand Traverse County to use transportation to get into downtown. So we're really excited about the overall impact and the ability to do more than just build a new operations center.
I think that one line on the letter
Mhm.
from MDOT says, "We recognize this project is being looked at as a pilot by legislators to develop regional housing and transportation solutions across the state."
Yeah,
That's very exciting.
it is.
Good job.
Thank you. Yeah, it's received a lot of attention from that angle of being it's sort of what I call transit-oriented development 2.0, where you go at it more or less as a joint development instead of just building the transit center and then waiting for the development to come. I was really fortunate to have Tony Lenti from the Housing Commission say yes when we pitched the idea that sounded like, pie in the sky. Hey, what do you think about building housing next to a transit station? And lo and behold, he said, sure. That sounds great. So several years later, here we are, knocking on the door of breaking ground. So our schedule for that is to break ground in the spring, and the project will be done then in the summer of '24.
So just a clarification, the funding that you show for the project that you're doing,
Right,
housing is not included in this funding.
correct.
Okay.
Housing has their own funding
own
stream.
funding.
Yeah. Yep, and they were provided a $6 million state budget allocation in the fiscal '23. Yep.
Other questions for Kelly?
Where are we at? I know a few months ago, you cut some roads up there, are they back up running?
And specifically in Leelanau County?
Yeah. Yeah, you cut, when I was on board, you'd cut 2 or 3 roads.
Well, several routes have been reduced system-wide. So in the city loop system and Grand Traverse and Leelanau County Village loops. What I'm trying to recall right now is from when you were on the board to now, whether or not we have brought any back. I guess I would say the Route 10 bike and ride has been brought back since then. But we are still working on restoring full service. Right now, we're at about 80% of our service levels. So we're still working on that through building our staff back up. Yeah.
Patricia?
Yeah, Kelly, thank you for a very good presentation.
Yeah.
And I think there might be confusion. You do have an on-demand. You are picking people up.
So
Explain the difference.
it's just the difference is that in the city, the on-demand, the link on demand works with an app where you can track the bus and it happens within 30 minutes. We also have demand response. Yeah, and thank you for helping me clarify that. We also, of course, have demand response that services all of Leelanau County. And that is where you can call up to a week ahead of time, but you can also call the day of or the day before and see what's available. But that is Village Link 10 and Village Link 11 that services the entire county and is door-to-door service.
So, and one other thing, really, last night I, at our Leelanau Township board meeting, I was encouraging people to support the millage because we are a classic example of how that's needed and used. We used it again today to get to a doctor's appointment because my husband can't bear weight. He's wheelchair bound. There's no way I could get him in the car.
Yeah.
So Beta, I called, they came, and we also took Beta home from the hospital. Again, it would have been very difficult for me to get him in the car. So I think it's a wonderful service, and I think it's something that people don't know is available. And thank you for offering it, and I hope everybody will support this millage because it's a great service for people who can't drive or who may not be able to drive for a period of time or who just doesn't wonder. It's great. And it's affordable instead of paying hundreds of dollars for EMS service to come from the hospital. It's $1.50 for my husband.
Yeah.
It's tremendous.
Yeah, thank you. And all of our vehicles are accessible.
And your drivers are wonderful.
Thank
They
you for
are.
sharing that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. And would
Thank
you
you.
leave a few extra of these on the counter?
Yes,
And
done.
we'll pick them up and distribute them.
Great.
And John, thank you for representing the county on the Beta board.
Well, you're welcome, Ty. Just to comment, Kelly's leadership, I was running companies for 15, 20 years. CEO level experience like that, what she's done and what she continues to do is amazing. And we're just very fortunate to have somebody of her caliber in this position. And I just want to thank you for your efforts.
John?
Thank you. Thank you. We now have the Northwest Education Services Special Ed Relations Request. And we have Ryan Jarvie here and we have Linda Bilecki here. And thank you both.
Thank you for the opportunity to come today and speak about our millage proposal. And we'll specifically speak about special education and the ballot proposal in terms of the regional special education millage. So thank you for your opportunity. We too will be seeking this support on the ballot for the November 8 election. Next slide, please.
Excuse me. Yeah, so we'll just kind of talk a little bit about what we do as the intermediate school district and who we are. Then we'll get into a little bit more background about special education, how that works in the region, and then a little closer look at the millage proposal. Next slide. So yes, like we said, Northwest Education Services, up until last year, we were Traverse Bay Area Intermediate School District. But we still do serve in the ISD role for the 5 counties in the region: Antrim, Benzie, Grand Traverse, Leelanau, and Kalkaska. We have, we're one of 56 ISDs in the state, and they all kind of vary in the roles and the functions they perform. Kind of depends on what's needed in the local community or in the local school districts. So what we do here in the region is early childhood. We have a lot of partnerships with different agencies, serving younger families with in-home services, screenings for learning disabilities, those types of things. Special education is a big one. We'll get into that a little bit more later. We've also got a career tech and vocational education program at our career tech facility in Traverse City. We have 21 programs that are available to juniors and seniors from the region. Professional development, another one we do for educators across that 5-county region. And then technology, communication, business services, that kind of the district to district level. Next slide. So currently we do levy 2 mills for special education. And that is across, again, that 5-county region. And that supports 3,000 students, which is about 14% of the total student population for us. We've got 8 service area supervisors, 1 compliance monitor, and 1 curriculum coordinator, who all sort of work with the principals and school administrators at the local districts. Then we've got 200 evaluators, and those are and service providers who are kind of your school psychologists, your social workers, occupational physical therapists, the specialists for visual and hearing impaired students. And then we've got another 50 classrooms that we have in the ISD who each have teachers, and then about a little over 100 teacher assistants who support those students in the classroom. And then a handful of school nurses too in that group. Infant and toddler services are another piece of that early childhood pie that we have our fingers in. Again, sort of that screening and evaluations and assessments. And then we've got the 4 center-based programs up there on the screen. Bridgeway is an autism spectrum disorder program that serves preschool through grade 12.
New Horizons is a program for students with moderate, severe cognitive impairments. Again, that's through grade 12, preschool through grade 12. And then Transition Campus includes our Life Skills Center for that older population of students 18 through 26. Again, that they can have autism or cognitive impairments. It's after they kind of graduate or phase out of the younger age programs, they go to the Life Skills Center and Transition Campus. And then Creekside School is our K through 12 facility for students who have behavioral and emotional impairments. Next slide.
So what is the proposal? Since 1986, the ISD has had 2 mills in authorized millage for their special education. We've had that in place. And in 2000, that was our last restoration millage. So much like you would experience within your operational millages, our millage is subject to rollback as well. So we've had continual rollbacks, and we're getting close to the point where we would essentially drop below that 2 mills that we've had since 1986. So the ask is to have 0.5 mills for a period of 10 years, beginning with the 2023 the 2022 millage, or 2022 levy, excuse me, that would allow us just to have a little bit of an insurance policy to be able to continue to levy and maintain that 2.0 mills. So it's important to note that this is not a millage increase. We're just asking to maintain that 2.0 levy mill to be able to levy to support special education programming within the region. Next slide, please.
So why is the millage needed? Obviously, we're here to support the students. And there is a legal obligation for public schools to provide a free, appropriate public education for special ed students. And in Michigan, that is from birth through age 26. So it's a wide age range. I think it's a little bit longer than the federal law, which I think is at 18. So we're here to support the students, and there is that legal obligation for local public school districts to do that. And I'll kind of get into the details on why that's important. And next slide.
As we spoke about, the millage that we have has been rolled back over the last several years. We've had a pretty robust economy in terms of those local real estate prices. As you know, we've had pretty significant growth. And when that resale of those properties exceeds the rate of inflation, we have to, in essence, roll back our millage, much as you see within your own operating millages. And so we've had an erosion, as we talked about before. We had a restoration millage of 0.75 mils back in 2000. And we're now at the point where potentially starting with the 2023 levy, we would in essence be rolling back below that 2.0 mils. Once our millage is rolled back, it's permanent. It cannot be rolled up. So if we have a year where the rate of inflation is exceeds what we would have in our property tax growth, it is a permanent rollback. So once we would drop below 2, we are below 2. So we're just, again, asking for this millage to be maintained at the current 2.0 mils to offset any potential losses that we might have due to that Headley amendment.
Next slide.
Yeah, so this is just a visual that shows over the last 5 years where we were in the millage representation. So you can see we had little bit over 2.1 mils available, and that has slowly eroded over the last 5 years. And you can see we're just really close to dropping below that 2.0 authorized millage.
Yeah, so in 2018, what amount did that bring in for you?
It is roughly about $27.5 million for us in terms of the special education
And in
millage.
2019, it brought in.
It's about this. I mean, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but in the last fiscal year, it was $27.5 million.
So it's been bringing in that same amount or a little more.
It has grown. It has grown a little bit. That's correct. Yes. Yeah, it is our largest source of revenue within our special education millage, or within our special education fund, and it brings about 43% of the revenue for us.
And just to clarify, That's the available millage that we would have to levy, but we do only levy 2 mills.
That's all
not
we're
2 mills.
authorized,
So that we
actually.
haven't levied 2.108 in that year.
That's correct. That's good. Yes, we've only ever levied 2. That's all we're authorized to levy. This just is the amount of available millage.
Next slide.
If I can
Oh.
ask, so what you're telling us is with the property value increases, how does that play into your annual revenues? Because our property values have continued to go up over the years.
That is correct. We have continued to have increases within our revenue, but at the same time, we've also experienced increases on the expenditure side.
Okay.
So again, what would the millage do? There are those 3,000 students in our communities who have some of the greatest needs when it comes to learning and being in the classrooms. So really supporting those kids with the the equipment, the teachers, the support staff that they need to get them into the best educational shape we can. Beyond that, it does support facilities for special education students too.
The 4 center-based programs that Ryan spoke about, those are district-owned facilities and educational centers within the Traverse City region. So we maintain, we own, and we operate all of those 4 center-based programs. With the 2 mills that we levy for special education, we utilize those funds to be able to maintain and operate those programs. We have been fortunate enough to have enough dollars available to be able to support those facilities. We're actually working on 2 building projects to actually expand those buildings, given the program needs that we have. And we don't want to compete with local districts for for any capital improvements that they may have. So the 2.0 mills that we levy for special education, we take care of running and operating, as well as any expansions to those programs on those buildings. So we manage to do that just within the operating, so that we don't compete with our local districts who may be looking for different capital improvements, such as bond issuances or sinking funds. So that is the only thing that we levy to actually maintain those buildings.
And I think just another important thing is the money that's derived from this millage is used specifically for special education needs and purposes. So equipment is a big one, right? The technology that kids use in the classroom. You might have a student who is nonverbal and can't communicate. So you've got the eye gaze technology where they can track their eyes and then the words pop up, or they're vocalized through a robotic voice. That equipment can be kind of expensive, especially if it's a smaller school district. It might be harder for them to manage that cost. I think as an ISD, we're kind of in that position where we can bring some cost efficiencies to smaller districts that need those things. I think another important point is the what we call catastrophic costs. So if a school district has a student who may be, a typical student, and they get into a car accident and now they have traumatic brain injury, that cost for that student and providing them that education is going to increase significantly. That can be covered by this millage funding.
And we have had students who have had perhaps a one-on-one nurse service, and that is something that we have been able to support at the ISD level. So that isn't, particularly for some of our smaller school districts, it's not such a financial burden.
Next slide.
There have been a number of adequacy studies that have specifically talked about or recognized the varying cost to educate students, including special education. And one of the most well-known studies is School Finance Research Collaborative, and that really focused on looking at and highlighting the shortfall of special education funding at the state level. And just in terms of what does that look regionally for the intermediate school district, it was a $9 million shortfall in special education funding. That $9 million was borne by our local school districts with their general fund dollars. As Ryan spoke about, there is a legal obligation to provide special education programming. So when we think about what the millage does, the ISD does share they do share part of the local millage to support some of those unfunded costs, but still with the support of that local millage, it was still a $9 million hole regionally. Since 1997, all of the programs and services that the ISD provides to their local services have been at no cost to the local districts. There have not been any billbacks for any services. So any services that are provided and any students that go to that center-based program is free of cost to our local school districts. In addition to that, we have been able to fund and support some of those unfunded costs to try to bring that down, but it's still a $9 million hole. So if that millage does roll back, it's less available dollars to be able to support not only the ISD, but ultimately to the local school districts. So it really does benefit all students because it supports, because those ultimately that $9 million shortfall is borne by those local school district general fund, which supports all students.
And I think if, and like Linda mentioned, sort of that $9 million piece, that's more money that local school districts have to use from their general fund, right? So you can spread that money out elsewhere for other needs.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, if I could just share then, just regionally, what does that look like for Leelanau County in terms of the services and the programs that are provided to the 4 school districts as well as the PSA within this county? So we have 240 students who are receiving special education services across all of those districts and public school academies. 29 students actually come into Traverse City to those highly specialized programs within our center-based programs. In addition to that, we have 27 staff members or 8.6 FTE that actually come out and service students who are receiving services within their local districts. So they come out of Traverse City and come into actually to the local school districts to provide those services. Last in 2021, which is the last year that we have all of the financial data available, it was just over $1.1 million that the ISD sent back to the Leelanau County school districts to support their regional unfunded special education cost. But still, even given that $1.1 million that was sent back, it was just under $1 million that the local school districts had to bear to support those unfunded special education costs.
next slide.
Next slide, please.
So we do have a website set up, www.tinyurl.com/northedmillage. You can call us at that number there to ask any questions. We'll do our best to answer them. Voters should see a postcard coming in the mail pretty soon, just with more information. And then we are planning a public forum that everyone's invited to next week on October 18th. That'll be at Life Skills Center at 880 Parsons Road in Traverse City. So
it's an opportunity to come and see our facility and just see what that programming looks like and some of the equipment that's included within that building. And that was a building that we did a pretty extensive renovation to in 2017, 2018 to support the needs of those students.
Any other questions for, yes, Commissioner Rushton?
Yes, I was curious what your numbers look like over the years. How many children are you serving? When we started out, when was it the last time you got the millage bump?
2000 was the last time.
So between 2000 and 2022, the population that you serve, what do those numbers look like? How have they grown? Or have they grown or have they not grown? What's your percentage of growth or need?
That is a good question. I don't know what the numbers were like for special education in 2000. I will say regionally, in terms of special education students, I think that number has gone down over the last couple of years, but in total, the whole population of the region has gone down in terms of student counts.
Okay. I'd like to see those numbers, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So how many students are actually Leelanau County students?
Yep.
240 students.
40 is Leelanau counties, or is that how many you said are going into?
There are 29 students who come into center-based programs and 240 students. So
240 are
Leelanau County students.
Yep.
or Leelanau County resident 0 to 26 years old.
Yes. Correct.
All right, and then, so the 2 mills for Leelanau County, that brings approximately, let's see, what does a mill bring in for the county? Is it two point something million dollars per mill?
It's closer to 3.
Is it closer to
I
3?
think low 3s. I'm guessing here. I'm thinking back to Andrew's
I'm trying to remember
presentation.
what our annual budget, what is the county allocation? We were 5 point something mils, and it brings in how many million?
I think we budgeted 10.8, but it was looking more
Let's
like
look closer to 2 point
11
something,
something.
so Leelanau County will pay, then 4 million of your 27, is that accurate about? Do you have the breakdown?
I don't.
I don't know
think
the
we did
taxable
that.
value of just Leelanau County by itself. Off the top
You
of
don't
my
have
head.
How much 2 mills will bring in out of Genesee County then?
I can get you those numbers if you want, because I've talked to Andrew about it when I was proofing ballot language. I can
Yeah.
probably get it to you tomorrow if you want. So
Okay.
I don't know off the
You're
top of my head.
Caltesta.
Yeah.
Well, would it be
Some
safe to
industry.
say 2 mills would bring in about $4 million or a little
I'm
more?
guessing it's a little bit more. Yep. All right, yeah, I like those numbers too.
I would say that as a school administrator in Leelanau County, we could not have done it without the ISD. The cost of special ed, the small class size, all of the services, it's a very expensive program. And small schools cannot make it happen without the services of a ISD. So thank you very much. Any last questions for me? Yes.
just to echo the same, you were saying that all of the dollars go to cover to the city local districts, to cover their costs of the local districts aren't in the product, which really is backing into the point that Commissioner Russell said. This is an important program to maintain for our kids.
Thank you very much.
So shall we send this
You
information?
sent to me and I'll send it.
Perfect.
I do have a quiz for Ryan. Now, you're new with ISD, right? Okay, your map of the 5-county service area, the square mileage of the total area equates to what state in the union?
Delaware.
Delaware.
Close, Connecticut.
Okay.
Can I ask one more brief
Yes, you
question?
may.
Is this strictly education that you're providing?
Yeah, I mean, we do professional development, but it is for educators to help them with their work.
Okay,
It-
so,
It's also intervention services. So when we think about those birth to 3, it's catching those students really early to provide those intervention services to hopefully set them on the right path.
are you the only agency that provides that service in our county?
We have a legal obligation
I'm
to,
sorry.
we have a legal obligation under federal law to provide those birth to 3 as well as we do for students up to age of 26.
Thank you.
Chad, I bet you would confirm that we counted on them for career tech, for special ed, for business services, for transportation services, and for
Well, I
technology
want
services.
to echo what Ty said. When I was in schools in Buckley, we had special ed needs. And it would have bankrupt us if we had to pay for services. We had 2 twin boys who were both legally blind. And the parents were just struggling to know what to do with them. We worked out partnership with the ISD where we brought staff in on a daily basis. Those 2 boys were able to stay home. They graduated from high school, one went to college, and one just got married last year. And the parents keep thanking the ISD for that service.
I think the point though is we're not looking to eliminate the program. They're looking to increase the funding for the program.
Well, the reality is if the service has to be provided, it has to pay for it. It's either the school districts pay for it or the ISD paid for it. If the ISD paid for it, where do they get the funds? It's that simple. The service has to be provided, the bills have to be paid.
I don't think I heard that they're asking for an increase, that the Headley would roll them under 2 mills. They just need to maintain the 2 mills.
That's correct.
That is
That's
correct.
Ask they don't ask for the full. They only ask for 2 mil, but it needs to be maintained there.
Like, it will be maintained the whole time, or will it? What you're saying is it will be maintained without rolling back for 5 years? And
It would be maintained if the millage is available. So we would only ever levy 2 mills.
yes,
We,
but
we,
it will never be rolled back, or it won't be rolled back during that amount of time.
It will depend on. I think,
if there
property
are
values.
Headley rollbacks, that additional millage is rolled back as well.
Potential with the economy right now, but
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How many of these are you doing in the next 2 weeks?
We've got a few more.
A few more. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity and your attention
That
today.
square mileage test was on a ISD opening day here, that's why I remember. Connecticut was what we were told was the answer.
I'll add that to our trivia.
There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now at the point in our agenda where we have our consent agenda items. The purpose of the consent agenda is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one motion without discussion. Any commissioner may ask that any item on the consent agenda be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such request will be automatically respected and will not need a second. Do any commissioners want any of the consent agenda items removed? Could I have a motion then to support the consent agenda?
I'll move to support the consent agenda as presented.
Any discussion? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved 7-0. We're now down to the administrator.
I think all the next issues are mine, so let me just go up here to do a change of view. I don't get a chance to sit here that often, so take advantage of it while I can. First of all, on the administrative search, that's first on the agenda. I want to compliment all 7 of you for the way you handled this entire process. I remember we started this in April, and one of the things you asked to do, see if there's a consultant available. We got a price for $20,000. And I think we did it ourselves, thanks to all of you, without spending $20,000 on a search. I was on a meeting with administrators several weeks ago. There's about 5 or 6 vacancies right now, and I think we're the only county that did not hire a consultant to help with the process. But I think all of you did a great job. We stayed focused on target, and I think had a great pool of candidates. I want to start by complimenting all of you. So obviously you have a tough choice to make. You spent Friday afternoon and this afternoon interviewing 3 candidates. And in terms of what the next steps are, and Ty asked me just to give an update what I think the options are. And obviously it's your choice. It is on the agenda today. So you could make a decision if there's agreement between 7 of you today to make an offer to a candidate, and it would be pending full background search and successful negotiation of a labor employment contract. If, and I know you have a lot of things to think about. If you don't want to make a decision this evening, we have a meeting scheduled for the 19th, next Wednesday. We could change that from a committee budget meeting to a special meeting if you want to vote on it. I know it's difficult to talk about strengths and weaknesses like this, and I'm sure you haven't had much time to think of it, but I thought may be helpful. And I think Commissioner Wessel agreed with that. A process that I used before, because I've helped other units of government, help them find their officers. And if you all agree, I could pass out a card. It's perfectly legal within the Open Meetings Act. You have to put your name on it. So all 7, you can have a chance to have equal input. If you could write down the name of 1, 2, or even 3 candidates that you would support as a county administrator, not in any order, but to see if there's support. And then we would collect those cards and see if there's a unified vote, selection. We did this when we went from the 6 to 8 candidates to get down to the ones you interviewed. So it's kind of the same process, but you're down to 3 candidates now. We did give you those rating sheets, which I don't think any of you used in the final round. So what I suggest you do, and these will all be public information, but as a way to get the dialogue going, so one person doesn't have advantage of the other commissioner or so forth. If you feel comfortable, I would pass this out. You put your name on it, write down. It could be 0 names. It could be 3 names of people that you think would be, that you could support as a county administrator. And it doesn't mean that you have to vote for them, but just to get the dialogue going and maybe consolidate it to see if there's consensus. If not, you have time to think about it and we could do it next Wednesday. Mr. Chairman, do you think that'd be a good process?
That sounded like a good approach to me, but I did suggest that Chet propose that to us, but we want to make sure that this board is comfortable with that process.
I have a question. Is this to narrow down for discussion? or-
For discuss, no, for discuss, it's only for discussion.
So the question is, do we eliminate anybody?
Well, they'll see if there's consensus. It could be consensus between all of you, or it could be that you all haven't made a decision yet and you need more time to think about it. So this is just to get a dialogue started versus if we start with just going about pros and cons of one candidate, it gets sometimes a little difficult, or one commissioner may have more cut thoughts than other people. And this is just to get the dialogue started.
And then,
We'll give you those results right away, and then you can see how you wish to proceed from there. What you don't want to do, and I think Commissioner Lauter would agree because she went through it several times, is in the past, sometimes there was 4-3 splits on administrative choices, and that makes it difficult for the person coming in, also for the board to see if there's no support for someone and yet other commissioners want them, it just creates a difficult situation, and that person may not want to come in with that situation. I'm not saying it's going to happen here this evening, but this is just a way to start the dialogue to see if there's consensus towards 1 or 2 or 3, or maybe no candidates. You don't have to choose. One option that I don't think you want to do is you could interview more people, which you said you wanted to reserve that option last time too. So I guess the question is, how do 7 of you wish to proceed? Or do you want to just think about it and come back next Wednesday? We could change that meeting from a committee meeting to a special meeting.
It was my sense of it that this process, doing it this way, would allow each of us to have our voice first and not be influenced by what our colleagues had to say. So this is just an initial step to see if there's any consensus on the group. And we may all, 7 of us, say we want to consider all 3. But we won't know that until we report out.
I just want to be clear, Chet and I talked about this. So Commissioner Rushton, if you do this card thing, she's gonna write Rushton and then she's gonna put 1, 2, or 3 names or none. But then once you do this, we're going to read these cards.
Yeah, it's public information.
I just want to make sure in case anyone's watching on YouTube.
This is not a secret vote or anything.
Not secret voting here.
This is just a way to get the dialogue started, to see if there's consensus.
When we're saying get the dialogue started, we're not actually, I mean, we just interviewed 3 people. And I'm sure all of us have feelings about all 3 in terms of capabilities and strengths. We're not going to talk about all 3 of them necessarily.
Well, let's just
Narrow
say one of the candidates has no support from anybody. Well, I'm just saying, if it does, that narrows it down. Or some candidates may get support from 6 of you and so forth. So it gives you an insight on where everyone stands. This is just a suggestion. You don't have to do it this way.
I'm not sure what the point is.
The point is, sometimes when you get these, and I've been in a lot of search committee, people are hesitant, or there's a sense that you don't want to criticize someone, or you don't want to influence other people. This way gives all 7 of you an equal opportunity to say who your preferences are, and then you can have dialogue. Because there could be one candidate that all of you agree on, or there could be some that you want to eliminate that no one supports. I don't know. So it'll give you an idea where you stand, or where the 3 of them stand.
We have to start someplace, and we have to see whether we have 3 people, 2 people, or 1 person, or 0 people that has support for further discussion.
This is kind of like the rating sheet, but with just, very minor things, since I don't think any of you used the rating sheets that we passed out.
We do it your way. Yes, or the other way would be, you raise a hand. So-
Yeah, I mean, this is just a way to get the dial. It's tough to get this process started sometimes.
So just voting on documents.
Yeah, in the past, like the last time, like when I was selected, each candidate, each commissioner filled a sheet, turned those sheets in with comments, and those were all combined, and then the vote, it gave the 7 commissioners a sense where everyone stood to see if there was consensus or not. But this is not a vote. We're not eliminating anybody. This is just to take it to the next level.
We're not talking strengths and weaknesses.
Not, well, you may want, depends on what the results are.
But that's kind of what's bothering me, I guess, and I think it's.
Okay, if there's a candidate that you, if there's a candidate that you really cannot support, then don't put their names down. It gives an idea. If there's one that you really want, only one, just put that name down to see where all of you stand. And then you can have dialogue about the strengths and weaknesses, if you choose. There's no magic way of doing this, so whatever you want to do, it's up to the 7 of you. Just a way I thought, just to get the dialogue started, and it has worked in the past, with my experience. But if you want to do it, that's fine. You can go around, I mean, it's up to the 7 of you to decide.
Well, I think it's better than us verbalizing it.
But those are the only 2
So as long
options.
as this isn't, as long as this isn't a final thing.
No, this is no decision. This is just to help with the dialogue. You're gonna have to have discussion on these candidates. This may help narrow down the discussion.
But if we put our strengths and weaknesses on there, that this is something we're going to be looking at. But I don't, never mind.
Chad, just for clarification, maybe, because I see how they're all looking at you. If someone were to write down all 3 names, that's going to open the floor that then systematically you will start to discuss all 3.
But it could be that there's tremendous support for one candidate and no support for a different candidate. At least you'll know that coming into the dialogue part about it.
The only other way I could see of doing it is have us each state our opinion of the 3 candidates. But I think there's a disadvantage of that is because by the time the 7th person does that, they're judging not only on the interview, but their colleagues. This gets us all on same equal territory.
Yeah. The challenge with that is not just 7th, usually by the 5th or 6th or 7th person, the first 4 have a huge advantage because they kind of set the tone. And then the other ones feel like, well, you can't express my views because the other ones already.
Really, what we're doing, Chad, is what we did when we broke down this first 68.
This is basically the same process, yes. Yeah, it's the same process, just trying to keep it narrow focus.
Yes, I have a question for my fellow board members. Would you feel more comfortable taking some time to review your notes that you took, review their applications, and come back in a day or 2 and make this decision?
Well, that's, we thought, if you want to, we could, well, you have a meeting scheduled for the 19th, so that's a week away. If you have a meeting between, tomorrow, we're gonna be busy, so we can't do it tomorrow because it's a committee meeting anyway. It's not a special meeting, and it's too late to post as a special meeting, so you can't take any action.
So for me, I think it would be prudent to allow us time to review our notes, review their applications once again. And I know I have not really commented on any of the candidates because I think it's really a little bit premature. So for me, I would feel a little bit more comfortable in reviewing my notes and reviewing the applicants and really putting a lot of thought into what we heard today from the 2 that we interviewed today and the first candidate that we saw. So that's where I'm at with it.
Which is one of the things we said about taking the time. If you're not ready, if you don't think, if you're not fully set on one candidate, I would say take your time and think about it.
Well, the thing is you can be set on one candidate today, but once you review, and you reflect back on what you've heard, you may change your mind. Or
That's
you
true.
may want more information. We may want another interview.
It's up to the 7 of you.
Correct.
Yeah.
So for me, I think we should take the time.
Commissioner Evans? Oh, I've had called on Patricia, so.
No, I was just gonna say, I agree. I would prefer to have time to review my notes and go over things. That's kind of what was bothering me because, you know, and when we do, if we do get to a point, after looking at, it, we could list the strengths or the similarities or whatever it is between the candidates. Right now, I need a lot of notes, but I'm not prepared to really say, this is the way I want to go. I know that.
If you do, no, it does help because there is no perfect process. If you do decide to wait, it would be very helpful if you came to that meeting, listen your strengths and weaknesses of all candidates. This is why we passed out those sheets at the beginning of the process to help you with that, because it is a big decision.
The caution is that if we do that, I think we need to make sure that we comply with Jet's directive earlier. We may not talk about these candidates outside this room.
Yeah.
So our thought process has to be amongst ourselves and not each other. Are we comfortable with that? I mean, is everybody willing to comply with that?
So the suggestion of somebody I hear is wait till the next budget meeting, which is the 19th. We could change that to a special meeting and put this first on the agenda. That's next Wednesday. We have budget meeting tomorrow. That's
Special meeting for Wednesday.
next, the 19th. You already are, you have all that on your calendars for a
Yes.
budget meeting. And we can't change tomorrow's meeting and you can't make a decision on a committee meeting. So I would say we can get a notice out tomorrow to call, well, you're all gonna be here tomorrow morning. We'll do a signature to change the 19th meeting. We'll do the administrative search as well as the budget and see how much time you have. But we'll put that first on the agenda for the 19th. But if you could come up with the strengths and weaknesses of all three candidates, that'd be helpful. It'll help keep the dialogue going.
Mr. Roberts?
So what I was gonna suggest is that, you know, we wait till the 19th, like Chet gives us a card, and we come in the 19th. We give, you know, between now and the 19th, we can.
Why don't we do, we'll email you that, well, tomorrow, you're gonna be here till at least noon. We'll print out that review sheet, narrow down to 3 candidates. And so you can make your notes and anything else you want to put on it. But at least it'll give you something to, because we put categories based on the questions and those are just guidelines for you.
Commissioner Holger?
And I guess I would just like to remind us all that the meeting on the 19th was shortened to end at 2 o'clock. So
Yeah.
we're jam happy.
Yeah, sorry, we have to leave by 2, but we should be able to, if you come prepared, you should be able to make a decision. If you wish to make it, you don't have to, but I'll finish those 3 candidates. They've been in this. I can tell you, I've been on the other side. When I was applying to be superintendent of schools in Charlevoix, it was a 6-week process. And after a while, it does drag for the board members and the candidates because it's very public. People know who they are. So everyone stops you and asks you, well, where are you in the process? And it, you know, so the time at my first interview to my second interview, till they made the final offer to the contract signing, to the time they offered me, then it took almost 8-9 weeks. And it does drag on the candidates because they need to move on with their lives. And everyone where they're working now is asking them about, well, you know, what's the status? Are you coming back? Or, you know, so we do need to wrap this up.
I agree. I was just going to say, the only reason I hesitated tonight is that I expect that the dialogue is going to be at least an hour. The special meeting will be at least an hour because I think we all have opinions. We're all going to want to share our strengths, our weaknesses, etc. And I just think we should do it tonight.
Yeah. I mean, you never know. You may come in and be in agreement. That happened in 2012 with one meeting.
Yeah. This is true.
So come with your thoughts on the 19th, and we'll kick off the meeting with that.
And by the time you go home tomorrow, we'll have those review sheets for you. And those, once again, those just guide. It's just to help you try to make some notes and try to put your thoughts in order.
I wanted to say that Chet was generous by complimenting us, but the consultant would have cost us $20,000. Chet and Darcy together did a very nice job of getting this process going. So thank you.
Matt started the process. Yep, yeah, we said Thursday, yep. Yes.
All right.
All right, so we'll change the meeting to a special meeting on the 19th, and we'll try to get those rating sheets out to you tomorrow. And take your notes and please come prepared.
Do you want to remind us one more time about our obligation?
That is, do not have dialogue towards a decision for this search. And there's been quite a few searches, if you look in the past, including Northern Michigan, where they've gone awry because there have been accusations of illegal dialogue between committee members. And that's school boards, that's county board. I know one city had to redo a search for that reason.
Thank you.
All right. Bills and grounds, I thought we had a very positive meeting. We have our two members here, so I'll let the two of you give an update on this.
I'll start and you can fill in.
I'm
We
good
both
at-
left our
I'm good
notes
at
at home.
interrupting. Go ahead.
So we did have a really positive meeting with a couple of excellent items on the agenda, and we are recommending to our colleagues that they consider supporting both of those when it comes to. One was on the displaying of the Indigenous Peoples Day resolution. And I have to say, when we first chatted about that, Commissioner Rushton had mentioned that, you know, it should be something outdoor in keeping more with the culture and the philosophy and celebration of Mother Earth and nature. And Rick came up with a great idea and presented it. In fact, he carried it in. A huge rock. And the one he got from outside was cardboard or some kind of material.
Yeah, we were quite impressed when he walks in with a huge rock in his hand. I did a double take, like, wow.
That was just public comment.
That was his public comment, yes.
But he is offering to provide the rock, and also the service will be done. Rick, help me with the name. Glasgow Landscaping have offered to donate the services, which is fantastic. So the idea is to put the plaque, the Indigenous Peoples Day resolution as a plaque into the rock as a bronze plaque.
Yeah, well, and I'm in a process of getting a price. I don't have one, but I can pretty much guess, I think it'll be about $2,000 to take the resolution, put on a bronze plaque, and then we can mount it. And you want to talk about where you think it should be located? The
Well, I
two of
think
you.
we had talked about putting it out here
Yeah.
by the entrance in the garden area.
Yeah, we have all native plants out here. It'll be a nice, I think, entrance as people come in. And so once I get the price, I'm sure we'll be ready by the November board meeting to make a formal recommendation on that. And then we thought it'd be great to invite the tribal members and have a little ceremony.
We just thought it was much better than putting it inside where no one will see it unless they happen to be walking down that hallway. So this is a lovely way of honoring our Indigenous peoples. The second item was the donation of playground equipment to Old Settlers Park. And this donation is being made by the Lelina family in honor of Nancy Lelina, who passed away about a year ago. And she was very, very supportive of Old Settlers Park throughout her lifetime. So the family wanted to do something that they felt was in tribute. And since she was also a strong supporter of children, what they wanted to give is a piece of equipment that would be appropriate, age appropriate for children. They were looking at maybe like one of the little rocking horses that is on. So that's a lovely gift for Old Settlers, and I'm hoping that our colleagues here will all support.
Yeah, and we don't have the details yet, but just want to let you know that once we have the formal donation and the actual item, we'll bring it back to the board. Pardon? Oh, is it two of them? Okay.
I'm so sorry. I think they think there might be enough money for up to two.
Okay,
Oh,
I talked to Casey Noon, who's chairman of the Parks and Recs, and he's having contact with the Landon family. So once we have that formal offer and the details and where it'll be at the park, we'll come back to the full board.
No, I think you pretty much covered everything. I think, you know, when we first were discussing the type of child playground equipment, And it was described, and for all of you in the audience, those spring,
I call them bouncy horses, but I don't think.
those
the
spring
names, yeah.
mounted animals, I don't know, it can be a horse or
Yeah.
whatever. And then, the toddlers are able to get on and off those pretty much on their own. So it's a good choice. It's a good choice.
So we'll be back at those two items in November.
Hopefully, yep, with firm recommendation and cost and everything, so. But I thought it was a very positive meeting, so thank you both for, and for Commissioner Rob, and you actually have the rock picked out because you sent me a photo of it.
Well, I'm gonna balance it out so you
Yeah.
don't fall out of bed, because I have so many rocks at the house.
That's true, yeah, that's true, gotta balance it out, yeah. No, but thank you for finding that rock. It looks like the perfect size and it looks like I have space for the plaque on it too, so.
Can I, not this week, but can I get the rock placed out there? We'll put it out back.
Yeah, and we can move it if it, for some reason it doesn't work out, we could always move it, yeah, I'm sure we could.
Just want to get it up.
Yeah, we could find a spot. Jerry can use his new tractor, so he'll be in seventh heaven.
But it is too bad we can't put it on the screen because it is a perfect
Yeah.
block that we have
Yeah.
for this purpose.
Is that rock going to be required to be cut in any way? Okay, so we already know that the size of the plaque will fit on that.
Oh, yeah, the rock is.
Yeah, I did see the picture, but I was just thinking of this, we talked about the size of the plaque between. 12
Yeah,
and
I don't remember, it's gonna be,
14.
what they recommended, I know it's 18, I don't remember if it's 12 or 14.
Yeah, so.
Or maybe it's our option, but what they're gonna do is take the lettering, obviously, because I kind of explained them what they want, and they just give me a ballpark, so I'm emailing it to the company that does bronze plaque, and they'll give us a mock-up with the exact cost on it and the sizes. It'll depend on the wording and how much they can fit, because you want a legible size, so they'll come up with the suggested size, but I'm sure it'll fit on that rock.
Yeah, good. No, it's-
Agree.
Thank you very much. Item C.
All right, Finance and Audit Committee, we met last Thursday, I believe it was, and this is October, so we're in the fourth quarter of the 2022 year. And it's a fair statement, this has been a challenging transition. I think everyone's trying to do what's best for the county. And so I've been doing a lot of thinking about this and how we can go forward. And I think there's 4 goals that everyone can agree on. One is we want Jared and the new accounting staff to be successful. And we all have to pitch in. We never thought that the 2 accounting staff people would transfer out for other opportunities. And it was good opportunities for them. So I'm happy for them. But when we started this process, we never thought that we had to start with 3 brand new people. All 3 of them came at the end of July, middle of July and first part of August. So it's been a major transition. I think everyone can agree we want a clean audit for 2022. That's always been our goal and we've always accomplished that. I think we want to continue that. I think everyone can agree we need to resolve these issues, challenges and this controversy before we bring a new administrator on. Simply would not be fair to bring someone on and having them deal with this. So I think it's upon me and the board and the staff to resolve this. So when we get a new administrator coming on board, he or she will not have to deal with this and feel confident that we're in the right path for other finances. And I think it's also, everyone can agree that we need to resolve these issues before the new Board of Commissioners come on in 23, 24. We're gonna have at least 2 new commissioners and it'd be difficult for them to come on and trying to deal with this, not knowing all the background and so forth. So really have been giving this a lot of thought and it's been a struggle trying to keep the process going, stay within the boundaries of the board decision and still make it success for everyone. And so I've been having dialogue with Jared. And Jared, would you like to come here and kind of repeat what you told the audit committee last week? And then I'll talk about next steps and what I think we can all agree upon. So Jared?
Good evening. Yeah, I'll just give a little recap of kind of what I said to the board on Thursday, just hit 2 months, little over now since it's been an extra week, but it's definitely been very busy for us, lots to learn here, even coming from a background in governmental accounting. And I wish it would happen all at once, but it definitely won't. It'll be a process for us all. On top of it being new to me, we've got the whole new department, whole new staff who need to be trained, and then working on the budget moving forward and getting that prepared for next year. So it's definitely been a challenging couple of months, but I do kind of like that, like having a challenge and being able to do like problem solving stuff. I really enjoyed that with my previous job. Going through 3 different finance directors in a short period of time, about 6 months, you see a lot of different things. And Jen and I have definitely gotten together and looked at going back and doing some things kind of the way that we would like to see it, and worked on maybe different styles and what we would like to see moving forward, working together there. I know there's definitely been concerns with before we got here, plus we're all new, so it's understandable that you want to make sure everything is good moving forward. Of course, I can't say a whole lot about what happened prior to me getting here, and since we've started, everything hasn't been perfect, so I'm sure you're wondering about certain things. Right now, from talking with the audit firm and Steve Peacock, he had said it would be about an 18-month process of putting this all together and getting it all up and running. And that was actually before we even started. So that was with experienced staff. So I think just right now we're, going through growing pains, adding the new department, and there'll be an adjustment period there for us. Specifically going back, we had talked about going back through the payrolls for the last 6 months or so, and identifying any issues and then correcting them moving forward. That was one of Steve Peacock's biggest things, where he said, if you want a clean audit, there has to be at least them seeing us improving in the fourth quarter, or having things good in the fourth quarter and being able to fix anything that has already happened. What we've seen most recently, or most often, was this taxable versus non-taxable travel. And that's a coding thing, and whether it's actually going to be taxed or not for employees. A lot of that, from what I'd seen, it probably affected half of them by about $5 or less. So most of it's going to be very, very small adjustments there. So that's definitely good. Steve said something along those lines where if they're seeing, small amounts, that it's definitely better for us. And especially if we go back and correct anything that we had come across. So I know we're going to be looking into maybe some, obviously more training, working together with people.
Yeah, and I'll talk about that.
Okay, well, yeah, and of course, that's what we want. I think moving forward, you can go into that, but what I would like to see kind of for us is definitely having a clean audit. One of the things Chet brought up was that, and that'd definitely be our goal moving forward. When the audit firm, when we send them everything, I'd love to be able to send them books that are completely closed out, the governmental fund financials, the front financial statements, everything that they need to put together the audit, instead of them having to make those adjustments. And we've got a lot of good people here. I think if we all get together at the end of the year, going into audit season, that we can get that done. So it's definitely a very difficult goal for this year. But the more that we're here and can do it, maybe it'd be more of a next year thing, but that would be what I would like to see. So I'm very interested in seeing what you guys expect of us and would like to see for what is successful in your minds.
So let me outline what I think is a plan going forward, because I think everyone likes to see a plan. It's nice to have dialogue, but we need benchmarks that are tangible and measurable with specific goals and objectives. So I outline the 4 goals in terms of specific benchmarks, and I shared these with Michelle and Jared. We met on Monday, and I developed 8 benchmarks. We're gonna meet again with Steve Peacock on tomorrow afternoon to fine tune it. And then I want to follow up with a meeting with our treasurer and our HR director too, to make sure we're all on the same page. So let me outline the benchmarks to date that Michelle, Jared and I have agreed to so far. And we're gonna fine tune this and probably add to it also. But benchmark number 1, Jared and the county staff need to be trained. And you certainly agree with that?
Oh,
And
yeah,
we're
we're
talking
not
about
gonna-
payroll and internal controls. And at the end, I'll put a date by all of these too. But I think you and the staff would appreciate getting training. And I want to compliment Jen and Michelle. I like to come in the office and hear Jen's laughing in Jared's office, and that has been a pretty common occurrence lately.
Yeah.
And Jen has a unique giggle, as you all know. So she's not a quiet person. So when I hear laughter coming from Jared's office and it's Jen giggling, I take that as a good sign. So I'm glad to hear that. 2, we need a clear understanding of the duties of the treasurer, the HR director, and the finance director, and their duties and responsibilities. I think the best way to that is develop the flow chart. Exactly, it's black and white on paper, who's responsible for what duties. 3, we need to update our financial policies and procedures that are manuals, and we talked about that. Once again, everything I'm saying, Michelle, Jared, and I have agreed upon verbally. We will put a monthly update on every board meeting agenda, so you have an update every month where we're at with this process. One of the things that I believe our chairman has suggested is a weekly meeting between the board chairman, the clerk, the administrator, and the finance director to make sure we're reviewing correctly and going forward where our goals and objective. 6, review all the past payrolls since May to make sure that we are full in compliance, so we're not surprised during the audit process. So go back through the payrolls, and I believe that has
That's
already
already been
started.
yeah.
7, which is on your agenda later on, additional Harris login ports, and we'll talk about the need for that. And we talked about that during our finance committee meeting. Right, we have a system,
Additional what?
Harris
Harris.
access points, and we'll talk about that. But basically, we have total of 9 licenses now.
9 licenses.
And there are times where really, we have more people using in the system. So someone could be halfway through a project, and that means Jared cannot log on, or the county staff can't log on, but we'll talk about that more. We need more license. That's something that's on the agenda later on today. When I started this process, I reached out to Steve Peacock and Dean Bott. Most of you know Dean Bott, he's a Grand Traverse County finance director. They were part of the interview process, and they both said this is going to be a year-long process. They both are willing to help Jared, and I reached out to them about having regular consultation with both Mr. Peacock and Mr. Bott to help Jared with any questions that he has, so forth. So how do we do all this and do it in a way that's fair and equitable? Like I said, I don't have a full recommendation yet because Michelle and I and Jared are going to meet with Steve Peacock and Jen tomorrow. And I want to expand that to another meeting, include the treasurer and the finance or the HR director. But one of the things I'm looking at, and you'll get this all in writing, is to transfer the oversight of the finance department to the clerk's office through March of 2023. At that time, the board and the administrator can look at that and see, are we meeting the goals? Should it continue, or should it transfer back to the administrator in March? I'm not saying end in March, but have a review, a thorough review. There'll be a new board at that time. There'll be a new administrator at that time. Both will have time to at least look at this and have a thorough review in March where we are. Are we making progress? Are we not making progress? By March is when the 2022 year budget will be done officially and the audit process will start. So I picked March just as a way to give time, get some training, bring the new administrator on board so he or she does not have to deal with this right away. So the new board is not overwhelmed by this, and a review in March and see where we are going forward. So in a nutshell, that's the proposal. I think I pretty much brought this up, pretty much everything, without the specific benchmarks. We came up with those since our last meeting, because at our finance committee, the three members of the finance committee endorsed this concept. We obviously want to develop the benchmarks, but I think the critical thing is having a written plan with specific benchmarks that are black and white. Have the payrolls been reviewed? Yes or no? That's black and white. Are they in compliance? Yes or no? That's black and white. So all these benchmarks, in my opinion, are black and white issues. And Michelle, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but do you agree with everything that we've talked about? Did I miss anything?
Kevin's already started the review of the payrolls.
And
Sorry, what did you say?
Kathy's already started the initial review of the payrolls.
we want to make sure, and Jared and staff weren't even here in May, but we want to make sure we go back to May to make sure there's no errors. We don't want any surprises when auditors come in. And I think for your peace of mind, you would appreciate that also.
Oh, yeah. And of course, yeah, I mean, maybe assisting with the reviews too.
Yes, yeah, it'll be a
Right,
team
he
approach.
would be, but he doesn't need to sit there while we're going through every review, because if there's not an issue with something, the auditors gave specific directions in the detail that has to be done.
So right now, I'm not asking for any board support or endorsement because we don't have a plan finalized yet. We can give an update at the 19th, because by then we would have met with Steve Peacock and have more details worked out. But this is kind of a path that we're on to hopefully resolve this and truly make it for a clean audit. And so the new board and new administrator do not have to deal with this. And we all want Jared and the Yukon staff to be successful.
I just want to explore a couple things. And I agree, we do want Jared to be successful. And, but we also recognize that there are some errors that really need to be corrected. Now, the current, what's happening now, as well as what's happened in the past. And I just, when you say transfer oversight to the clerk's office, what does that mean?
We will work on that. We're still working on that. I don't want to speak on Michelle's behalf. We've had some private discussions, but until we meet this week, it definitely is the training and so forth and the supervision, but I don't want to put down exactly what I mean, because I want to make sure we're on the same page. The only way it's going to work is we're all going forward the same page. So my goal is hopefully Jared, Michelle, and I can sit down together, come up with a plan and present it to the 7 of you as a team approach.
That's what I was really asking. So you're still working out those pieces of what that means. And I
Yeah, the finance committee just
applaud you,
mentioned.
Jared, for being willing to be trained. I mean, I realize you've had experience with the Native American, but not really with.
Well, it's
other
all
forms of
different,
government.
plus, yeah,
So
systems
this
and
is new for
everything.
you, and I applaud your willingness to recognize that training is useful and want it.
Well, of
Because
course.
that's.
Yeah, the finance committee met last Thursday. I just gave a general overview from that. We kind of fine tuned a little bit and we're going to keep fine tuning it. But I think all of you want a plan in place and you want a tangible benchmarks and you want it in writing. So we're working on that. But I don't want to speak on behalf of Michelle, nor do I want to assume anything for Jared. So that's why we need to get together. And that's why we also invited Steve Peacock to join us, and he has graciously agreed to help us with this. Commissioner Lowder, you're the chair of the committee. Did I miss anything, or 3 of you were part of that meeting?
No,
So
I think you pointed out some important things, we've got, Jared just came on in August, but, our review will go back further, because we, as you said, we had a couple of our employees switch to different departments, so that kind of.
which had a huge impact that none of us expected.
But the idea is as our new finance director and 2 new employees move forward, they need to learn the best practices right up front. And we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Both those phrases have been tossed around here last week, and I think they're very appropriate. We have a process, and once we get on board, as Jared said, styles will come. Once that's all, once we get all that figured out.
We will see a final recommended plan on the 19th.
That's my goal. I can't guarantee it until we have our dialogue to make sure. What I don't want to do is present anything that's going to cause more controversy. Whatever I present, I want Michelle and Jared to feel comfortable with, and then the board endorse it.
Well, I would echo Patricia's kudos for the working together and the willingness to train and the willingness to have a written plan and for all of us to get on the same page. Thank you. Thank you. Any last questions on this one? Yes, Quinn?
I just want to say that I am relieved and glad that you're willing to be trained and that it is going to happen. So thank you.
Thank you. Now, are you doing the auction?
Yes, I am, because Miss Evans decided she wanted an evening off. So you have, she prepared two motions, but I crossed one out. So let's start with the vehicle here first. Each of you have this sheet. I pass them out here on your desk.
Want to make a motion?
You want me to read that whole VIN number?
I think the clerk has a copy. I think she can insert that. I have great faith in the clerk's ability to put the VIN number in it.
I move that the County Board of Commissioners approve the sale of the retired building safety 2013 Ford Police Interceptor to Eric Phelps of Grand Rapids, Michigan, in the amount of $2,750. In addition, winning bidder must pay a 5% buyer's premium to the county, and if not tax exempt, with 6% sales tax to the Secretary of State. Funds to be deposited in 542-000-000-673-000. Support.
Questions? Discussion? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Yeah, we actually double dip on this vehicle because the building safety department bought it originally for $8,000. And they used it for several years. So this is actually the second time we're selling this vehicle. So really, we got back $10,750 from this vehicle. So it's worked out well. On the boat, as you know, the first time, no one bid the minimum bid. So it went back on the auction. The deadline was yesterday. There was a high bid of $10,111, but that did not meet the bid of $12,000. We called the gentleman today asking if he'd like to go up to the 12,000. He said no. And originally, we're going to ask you to make a decision whether you want to sell it for that price. But at 3:02 p.m., I got an email from Jeff Shaw. He's the Elmwood Township Supervisor. And the Township Board is willing to make a bid of $12,000 for the boat. And so we did go through the bid process. No one met the successful minimum bid. We did call a gentleman to make the process fair, ask if you want to pay the $12,000, since he went through the process and he says no. His highest bid was $10,011. But we do have an offer from the township. They discussed this at the board meeting last night. They did not take a vote because they didn't know the vote. They didn't know the process, but they got, Mr. Shaw said the board encouraged him to come in and he put it in writing, a bid of $12,000 pending final township board approval.
You're looking for a motion to.
If you accept the bid, it'd be pending township board approval. And there would not be that 5% because we did not go through no one purchased it through the bid process, so there's no cost for the bid. So, and they would not pay taxes because they're a unit government. But the boat to stay in Leelanau County and be used by the township. And it gives us almost $1,800 more than we would have got.
Mr. Robbins, you want to make that motion?
I would recommend that we sell the.
No, you only recommend.
Making a motion.
You said move to recommend. This is just move.
Well, you just want a motion?
Yeah, because we're.
Motion to accept the offer from Elmwood Township for $12,000 for the sheriff's office. Marine Patrol Boston Whaler, the trailer, and Mercury motor.
Pending official approval from the township.
Pending, approval from the board.
Any discussion?
Only that an obvious, what is the term I'm looking for? You'll add the VIN numbers. to
Yeah.
discuss.
I was gonna clean that all.
Yeah, there's no VIN number here to read.
Yeah, I'll just-
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got it. Thank you.
All those in support of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes 7-0.
All right, on the Harrison, Michelle, you want to help me with this? Since this really impacts you more than it does me. Want to give the board an overview on this? And the, I'm sorry, and the finance committee approved this 3-0 vote.
I don't have.
Here, you want it? You want my.
Oh, here it is. So with the Harris, we have approximately 20 users that could be on at any time. We currently have 9 users. This has been an ongoing problem for several years, and it's just accelerated recently.
We have nine
Nine licenses, potentially 20 users.
Thank you.
And it's just been getting worse. Like last week, I had 4 members of my staff gone out ill, and between 3 of us, we were sharing 1 license. And that was only when we would go and ask the treasurer's office, can you please get off for a second so we can do some receipts, run some financials? And it's just too hard if someone's working on a project to expect to go to another office to say, hey, will you come down? I mean, I can have 7 people on the system at once in my office alone. It's just time to do this. We talked to Leanna about it. She's the one that got the price because Jared noticed it as soon as he came on. It's something that we've grown accustomed to. But-
Michelle, could you explain what your departments use, Harris? Because I'm not sure commissioners know that. It's just not finance.
It's not just finance, it's for receiving. So we have 2 people at the sheriff's department. At nighttime, there's only 1 with the corrections officers if they have to take in receipts from inmates or bond postings. It is 1 in Trudy's office, 7 in mine, 4 in the treasurer's office. Darcy needs access as HR. Then we have Jared, and then we have the 2 accounting staff. And I don't know if
Building safety. does
Chet
it?
has it. Building safety does not.
Building-
It's a
okay.
different system. So, and it's not just if it's on your terminal and it's up, you just don't want to keep logging in and out. We're not asking for the full 20. I think that would be overkill. I think if we can get the 6, that would be great. We are requesting also a transfer from the general fund contingency. This was not in the information technology budget. But, and it's not a bidding item, we need to get them from Harris. It will be worth the money for the aggravations cost.
We literally have to ask people to sign off so someone else can sign on, which does not make those people happy if they're halfway through a project. So.
You're okay?
I move that the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners approve the transfer of $12,000 from the general fund contingency to data processing fund 636 and approve the purchase of 6 licenses for financials from Harris in the amount of $12,000 with the expense to be charged to 636-000-000-801-000.
Support?
Second.
Discussion, yes.
Yes. I can see where you would need to increase, for use. But my question is, I believe it was last year, at some point, there was discussion about a different accounting, program. So I guess my question is, at what point are we looking at transitioning to, what was the name of that program that John?
John is looking at BS&A.
Correct. And as I understand that we use that throughout the county already for different. Yeah. I understand that that program also gives a lot more flexibility to the users, and a lot more information would be able to be provided for commissioners. So my question is why are we not looking at a program that may improve the process that's in place as opposed to adding on to.
I can address that if you want. Jared and I, am I interrupting you? I'm sorry.
That's okay. I think you got the idea.
No, I do have the idea. Jared and I have already talked about that. And first of all, and Jared will correct me if I'm wrong. It hasn't been budgeted for this year. It is certainly something that is going to, my understanding is it will be looked at, and Jared does want input and not just looking at only BS and A. But given the current state of affairs with your finances and your staffing, this would be ill-advised at this moment to also take on an integrated new software, because that's going to take 12 to 18 months in and of itself. I've been talking to Dean up in Grand Traverse, and they're looking at a good 8 months, and it is not a simple process. I'm the only one on staff that's really done it.
As I understand, it's not going that smooth.
And it's not going that smoothly, and so, yes, it seems like a lot, but we've still got day-to-day business, and your financial setup right now, the way it is not prepared to handle new software. They gotta learn what we do.
Yeah, we wouldn't be looking at upgrading the system until at least January of 24.
As you know, we have a budget meeting tomorrow, so that's
Yes.
why I was asking that question tonight.
Right.
Is that something, I know there's been discussion about transition and what that plan looks like. It's like, I understand where you're coming from.
If you notice, we didn't put the request in for 2023 for the budget for software. We all agreed this is not the right time. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not time.
Is it on the agenda down the road? Absolutely, but are we gonna do it in 2023? No, and that's why it's not in the
And
budget.
this is no way in any way to stop those discussions of
Yeah.
This
new
is
software
something
that
that we need right now.
It's just,
And that's why I'll clarify one thing when I said it's not been a smooth transition, in Grand Traverse County. It's not because of Grand Traverse County. It's not a smooth transition anyway that's done it, because it's very difficult to implement it and then train all the employees and get used to the system. So it doesn't matter where there's a transition in software, it always takes a long time, and it's very stressful for the employees until you get over that hump.
Well, I do know that we use that programming in the county for other things, and so that's
Yeah.
why, okay, great. That's.
Any other questions? Yes, Melinda?
Will this be yearly?
No.
This is one time?
one time, there's maintenance fees that we get charged by
Oh,
Harris, but
that's
that's just to get these.
And the nice thing is, if you approve it, we can get the process started
I mean, that
tomorrow
should
and
be-
have it logged on by the end of this week.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it should be instant.
unlike other pieces of equipment, we'd have to wait 8 months to get it. This will be pretty
Yeah.
instant.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say. Motion passes 7-0. We now are at our point where Commissioner Rushton has asked us to consider the executive board meeting scheduled for election day, and would like to find an alternative date that the clerk's available and the administrator's available. And I think I heard you raise this date of the 9th.
Yeah, I would say ninth, there's a couple things. One is we already have sent out notices to people saying, get their information to us by November 2nd. And so we do that on the 1st. And then especially the 2%, we got a lot of calls about 2%. And we're telling everyone they need to get them to us by November 2nd to get on November 8th agenda. And so I would suggest November 9th, Wednesday, November 9th.
I'm okay with that personally.
How is that any better for the clerk's office? So they're up all night.
Well, but I guess ask the clerk if she, would you prefer the 8th or the 9th
For a different date.
or a different date?
I'm flexible for whatever you, either way,
I think having a 2-week gap between the executive and the regular would be too long of a timeline.
Yeah,
The 9th works for me.
9th works for me.
Any other discussion?
Is this our executive meeting?
No. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. I was thinking,
And the Leelanau District Health Board meeting is on
what time is that?
11:30.
Well, just all of you, just make sure you're done with
Two
it.
of us.
No, that's not a tough word.
That's what I've got.
And then we meet the third Wednesday.
Okay.
It's like my calendar when I was late that day.
That's right, it is the,
So that's the third.
Michelle, would the 9th work for you?
16th.
For your staff, I mean, your staff?
Okay, any objection to the meeting on the 9th instead of the 8th? We probably need a motion.
We
Yes.
should have a motion because we have to get that.
Do I have a motion?
Yes, I will make the motion to move our executive board meeting from November 8th and move it to November 9th at 9 AM.
Support.
All those in support of
We
that
have
motion,
discussion.
say aye. Oh,
I'll support the motion. It's not the best day for me. The 8th would be better, but I'll just do my best. I'm gonna have to juggle some things. I'll try.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, we have a motion and on the floor, all those in support of the motion,
Aye.
motion approved. Thank you, Melinda. We now are at committee reports, recommendations and resolutions and 9:12.
Review of financials.
Oh, review of financials, yes. Any questions for Jared?
One quick one, Jerry.
Sure.
Again, I see water testing.
The SOS, yeah, so we did try to start putting on there the dates of the actual testing on there so that we can make sure that you see all of
That'll
those.
be helpful, so you can go back. Is that?
Yep.
Seems like a lot of, is that like, are they testing once a month? Because this is like at least the third time they've been in.
And then it's each site also. Every time that they test, then it's also
Every month?
each site, but it has been about each
While
month, yeah.
the parks are open?
I guess I don't know when they do their testing.
I had one more and we talked about it before the meeting, now I can't remember what it was.
About a truck, you were talking about. a truck.
Well, there was this F-250 tow for the sheriff's department. F-250 tow, is that a, was that a repo?
Put it under animal control. So I think.
Animal,
There's also animal control,
Yeah, that might-
engine issues, so they
Yes.
have to be
There's-
towed.
there was one from Bingham that I saw had
Yes.
some,
Yes, so I think that's the one
Yeah.
that Jim was telling you that he'll probably have to pay out of his budget. But we had a budget meeting.
Okay,
he was
that's
talking
all the
about that.
same.
Cause I remember Rick asked about replacing Wayne's truck. And they said they were gonna try and nurse it. I think this is the nursing.
The nursing. Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure it was all the same, so I guess that's all.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jared. We now are at committee reports, recommendations, resolutions. Any reports?
Commissioner Lofton, you want to talk about your experience now?
Oh, yes, I would. So I did have the absolute honor to be a guardian for a Korean War veteran on the Mid-Michigan Honor Flight. So I can hardly even begin to tell you how wonderful it was. It was, the experience was beyond my expectations. And we started Thursday night in Camp Grayling and had a full police escort to the airport Wednesday morning, flew out Wednesday morning. We hit all the monuments in DC. They fed the veterans very well. And everything was about the veteran. And then we flew in Wednesday night to a reception. How many people?
Oh, in the hundreds.
Hundreds. I've
The
been there
airport
for
was
400. It was absolutely incredible. So I recommend two things for people. Number one, if you know a veteran who hasn't been able to go on that flight yet, get their name in. And if you have an opportunity to be a veteran, just do it. I would do it. I would do it in a heartbeat again. The hardest thing for a few of these veterans was that if they had a female guardian, they had a hard time walking up the stairs ahead of their female guardian because they wanted the female guardian to walk up ahead of them. I'm like, no, we're supposed to catch you if you fall, because that's what we do. So it was just phenomenal. So thank you for the opportunity to go.
I should have explained a little more to Commissioner Louchet because every veteran and chaperone have to have a wheelchair. but I got a picture of our commissioner in the wheelchair, the veteran pushing her. And I should have explained, it was for the veteran, not for the guardian. So I apologize for not telling you that in advance.
Well, he had such a great sense of humor, so he did pose for that picture. My veteran didn't need a wheelchair, so I had a hard time keeping up with him. He was, in his, we saw, of course, we went to his, I call it the Korean War monument, which is my favorite there, and he was very touched. He was very touched to see it all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other reports? We now are down to special reports by staff, commissioners, and affiliated agencies. We are now at public comment. Yes.
Oh, we've been sitting a while. Alexis Whitman, Northport, Michigan. And a couple comments on topics that came up today. I love the idea of the outdoor commemoration of Indigenous Peoples Day. And in conversation with the tribe, it may make sense to also have one indoors inside the seat of government. And perhaps an artist within the tribe could prepare something that could hang on the walls. I've always thought it'd be great to have more Dawa language used throughout our buildings, in our libraries and our schools, and restore the language in whatever way we can. I have very good friends among the tribe when we were homeschooling. My 15-year-old took the bus to NMC to take college classes when he was 15. I was quite confidently putting him on that bus. And he also took flight training at the tech campus. So there's a lot of good work that happens in this county. I think it would be helpful to have the figures broken down with the independent school district to know what percentage goes to the tech campus, what percentage goes to early childhood evaluation, what percentage goes to individual schools, because it's hard to get a sense. The emphasis was on taking care of the needs of kids with extreme needs, but I think having those percentages in front of us would be helpful also. I do want to return to the Connect news breaking on October 4th, and that's spelled Konnech, led by Eugene Yu. The reason that is something to really follow and pay attention to is that they had the data of 1.8 million US election workers, and the data included social security numbers, phone numbers, email, and their personal banking information. Eugene Yu also sits as a board member on Votem.com, which is another election-related company with more direct ties to the Communist People's Republic of China. And he bragged about his relationships with the chairman there. So there's a lot there, thanks to the investigation of the True the Vote people. Finally, the FBI got involved, and he was actually arrested in Michigan. The company is based in East Lansing with a research and development in Okemos. Governor Whitmer gave them about $300,000. So we don't know where that goes for or comes from. And that Christina Caramo, who's a candidate for Secretary of State, has on her website that she is very keen on getting to the materials, but data that's been held behind a label of proprietary information to understand the codes used in our Dominion election equipment and other election equipment throughout the state. So please follow that story, and we'll do what we can to update you on it, but it is really important to be aware of these things as they break. So thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Bill?
Sorry.
Louise near Elmwood Township. And again, this is so important. 55% of Americans who have been polled, including everybody, think fraud determined the election in 2020. So we demand honest elections in our Leelanau County by replacing Dominion voting systems, machines with secure paper ballots. And it's helping my daughter, car broke down, so I couldn't make the early one. But so I didn't know who spoke on conic, but I'll shorten mine greatly because it's been spoken on. Just that, yeah, their factory, when I went to MSU, I lived in Okemos, that's where it was. I just say this, and it may be repeated before, but on the now deleted website, Eugene Yu, the guy that was arrested, in line with the principles of political tasks first and economic benefits of enterprise second. So they put the politics, he was tied closely to the Chinese communists. That came first. Then if we make some money, that's fine. But first thing is the Chinese. So it created a Chinese Communist Party backdoor into these US election sites. And the people, the counties are all issuing the same talking points, and they confirmed with the vendor that everything is hosted in the US. So they thought everything was fine. And that's what we hear from our clerks here too. And I believe the clerks followed all the protocols too. But with all this information coming out, we're a step beyond that now. Who should be most concerned other than the 15 clerks when this kind of stuff comes out? How do you explain this? Everybody said there's no back door, but there was a back door. And it affected almost 2 million people and who knows what else. So it's important material there. Yeah, Mike Lindell too. Frankspeech.com. That'd be a great spot for the clerks to go to see the election fraud. And he just got permission, maybe that was mentioned earlier too, to release the, what's the guy's name? Dennis Montgomery, hammer and scorecard PCAPs, packet captures. So those will be coming up. And that from those, they monitored the election from, I think, November 2nd to November 5th, something like that, surrounded the election in 2020. And showed that 1,404 votes somehow were changed in Leelanau County. So that's out there to come out too. And the reporter, before this article came out, the day before, the New York Times was mocking the election deniers. It's not true that there's fraud. And, and the next day he had to report, no, I guess it was true. He was arrested. They've got evidence for this. So consider that. And the clerks especially. Now, no one thinks they did anything wrong. They followed the protocols, but now they should be questioning these protocols greatly. And then I'd like to just mention with Antrim County, this handout that I just got the information from the county websites. And in Leelanau County, the best term from 2010 to 2018, the best result they had was a 0.5% advantage to the Democratic Supreme Court Justice of Michigan. That was it. The average is 18% greater for the Republicans. Okay, and you can see that from your chart. And in 2020, supposedly, and I think supposedly is accurate, the Republicans won, or the Democrats won by 5%. So I'll drop this down 5% to 13. But the Democrats supposedly won that Supreme Court race by 21%. So this is a difference that you would expect. You wouldn't expect that much of a gap from what had been going on for the previous 8 years of elections.
Sorry, Bill, your time is up.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Other public comment? Yes, Steve.
Good evening again, Steve Mikowski, Lake Leelanau. I want to commend the administrator for wrestling the beach to the ground. It just appears a few minutes ago, we heard the administrator sort of acknowledge that the county commission and perhaps the administration was seemingly involved in an unbelievable, unprecedented, deliberate, self-inflicted, unnecessary crisis started in May of 2021 with a sole purpose of developing a loathing for the county clerk. What we have going now, we have the best possible start. I appreciate your efforts in getting this going because all new employees have to have a thorough understanding what occurred here. The best way is to proceed is for the commissioners and even the administrator to apologize to the clerk and the taxpayers for deliberately wasting so much time and resources and taxpayer money for something that never should have gotten on the table. It appears that bad and hateful politics what's allowed to trump fiduciary duty and a dedication to true public service on this specific issue. These are responsible actions that started in May 21 seemed to go along because no one would stand up and say, stop this. I will not participate in any other county meeting unless we stop this foolishness. But it will now be on the public record forever for this county board. We support every effort for a successful recovery from this situation to the harm that we believe has been imposed by this process on an undeserving clerk. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Mr. Riley?
Thank you. Thanks for 2.5 hours without having a break. Thanks for all the work you guys do. And really, I mean, it's a lot. It's gonna be hard to replace Chet, and I just have a suggestion. You know, it's like if you've ever been on a jury, they say elect a foreman, go in there, deliberate, get everything down. And if I was running the show, that's what would happen. Everybody would be in a room, but when we walk out of that room, let everybody talk, get it together. Everybody made the decision. It would be great if it was unanimous. Last thing a person wants to hear 2 years down the road is, well, you were my second choice. Okay. The new county administrator is going to need every break he or she can get. Again, it's going to be coming in and it's going to be a lot of work. I think Chet ought to stay on for an advisor for maybe a couple weeks or something, but thanks for what you do.
Thank you. And we were counting the cookies you had tonight.
I had one. And it was a good one. It wasn't.
Any other public comment? Thank you for coming tonight. Any commissioner comment? Yes.
I would like to say that we listen to you guys every week, and I know how concerned you are. And I'm glad that you're concerned citizens. An anomaly that can't escape me is
we have trusted our elections for years. And everyone trusts every single vote except our presidential vote. And if we don't, nobody ever calls into question any other person who was in that 2020 election. So that doesn't make sense to me. I also, Mr. Wiesner, you keep mentioning the numbers were up in 2020. Well, guess what? People were very fired up and we had more people vote. And that's a good thing in elections. That's a good thing when more people vote. When people are fired up, when people are determined. That's how democracy works. So thank you for your concern. We have an excellent election system here. And I'm glad we have so many concerned citizens.
Any other commissioner comments? Tricia, it's good to have you back. And the second comment is don't forget in 11 and a half hours, we're back at it. We'll be right here at 9. We have a budget meeting tomorrow morning at 9.
Remind us what time we started today. Was it
You're
1 o'clock?
You'll come at 9 o'clock. The cookies will be.
We're now at approval of financials.
I would move for approval of amendment number 22-009.
Support.
All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved 7-0.
Move to approve transfer number 22-006.
Support.
All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes 7-0.
Move for approval of claims and accounts $140,712.10.
Support.
All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Move to approve post audit $5,670,573.38.
Support.
All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved 7-0. Could I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move we adjourn.
Adjourn.
You don't even have gas.